Good afternoon. Katie, can you listen to me?
I do, I can.
Okay, Katie, everything is ready? Carolina, good afternoon.
Hello,
Hello,
are you there?
how are you? Yes, I am here. Hello, everyone.
Hello. Okay, so I'm going to start the video. Hello, good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure for us to welcome here Carolina Rodríguez. She's one of our closest participants for as a copy. Um, she's a full professor at Institución Universitaria Colomboamericana. And as you may know, she's very important and representative from the Flip Learning Global Initiative. And she has been doing a lot of interesting things regarding this topic. So thank you, Carolina, for accepting us to share some things that you know about Flip Learning. And well, I hope that you can enjoy and learn a lot from Carolina. Thank you, Carolina.
Thank you,
Scenario is yours.
Katie. Thank you very much, Katie, for that welcome. And thanks everybody for being here. It's very heartwarming to see so many familiar names on the people who are attending in the Zoom call. So many ex-students or co-workers from another time. So it's really, really nice to feel supported. And well, I hope to contribute in something in some way today for whatever you are doing in your classes. So the name of my talk today is going to be, well, I decided it to be Don't Flip Out with Remote Teaching, Flip Your Class. Why I'm going to say that? I'm going to give a big shout out to one of my friends, James Forero, who constantly makes the joke of flipping out. Of course, I'm the flipping lady, you know, so I'm always flipping out. And I was thinking, what can we do? How can I contribute right now when we're in the midst of this remote teaching? So, well, let's not flip out, let's flip our class. Okay, so I'm gonna start with this. As Katie said, I'm a full-time professor at Institución Universitaria Colomboamericana Única, which is a pre-service teacher program. And well, it's a wonderful place to work because of my students. Everything that I can do, it's because of my students. So a big shout out to them too. Okay, so the first thing we're gonna do is I'm going to ask you to be very active on the chat today. We're not gonna get out to tools for this part of the interaction. I'm just gonna use the chat on Zoom. And so Katie and Juliana are in the group. If you guys see anything in the YouTube transmission, you can also tell us what people are saying there. Okay. So I'm going to ask you a couple questions, and I want you to be active in the chat. Is that okay? Let's get rolling. So, what are some reasons to flip out when teaching remotely? So what are some of the fears you faced when moving to remote teaching? I want you to put that on the chat if you can. Okay, so I'm checking here the YouTube channel. I don't see anything yet. Okay, there we go. They're starting coming. Hello, Cindy, how are you? Ex-student, this is wonderful. So access to internet, yes. Making the time class more effective. Yes, that's right. Not knowing exactly what to do. Oh my God, yes, that sense of uncertainty. Too much time on screen. Thank you, Aldi. Yes, I have 2 little kids. That was a big concern. Not knowing how to use tools properly. Okay, not knowing exactly what to do. Effective learning, instruction. Maybe students are not there. They are just, oh yeah, the names, you know, the people who sign in and then they're never active. Yeah, lose students' engagement because of the screen, realizing that students can't much about technological devices, lack of motivation, keeping students engaged, development of autonomy, wonderful activities, sitting down. Yes, yeah, we all feel it, right? We all feel the need for active pauses. Okay, how to engage students in communicative activities, and the list goes on. All those concerns, all those days, they were terrible. We're so full of uncertainty. But I want to tell you something, and it is like those of us who were already flipping, it was not that hard for us. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I'm gonna tell you why, okay? Bear with me for a moment. So another question. flipping your class. I imagine that's what brought you here, 70 people to this As a Copy webinar, also because the As a Copy webinars have been wonderful. So what brought you here is this flipping your class idea. So the question is, what do you understand by flipping your class? Go ahead in the chat. Let's do that. So I'm gonna go back again to the chat. Okay, we're still in some of the answers of the first question. Changing mindsets, Marta Salguero, that's wonderful. Empowering students to avoid teacher talking time, that's right. Not to involve others that don't like to speak, how to involve others, okay. Making most of class time by assigning some content out. Good, thank you, Adri. Making most of class time, okay. Having students in charge of the learning, yes, Adri. Learning by doing, changing roles in big capital font. Yeah, that's right. Taking advantage of class time. Student-centered activities, promoting agency. Yes, you all got it. You all got it right. That's the whole idea of flipping our class. Probably this webinar would have been a lot different if we had done it, 4 or 5 months ago. Probably a lot of you wouldn't know many things, but now at this point, after all this super fast speed learning you have been doing, you know for sure. So let's take a look. Today, we are going to debunk some myths about flipped learning because there are some things, there are some ideas hanging in the air. I thought of some that I have encountered in different webinars, different presentations, different workshops that I've given. I thought of some myths, but if you have some myths, I beg you to write them down because there will be a moment when we share some others, okay? So we're gonna be mythbusters today. First myth, myth number 1, look at the images. Flipped learning is about sending videos for students to watch at home. Okay, well, no, that is not. There's a lot more to flipped learning than just watching videos at home. There are definitions that are official, and I guess some of you are familiar with them, that are, for example, the definition of the flipped learning network, which in 2014 tells us this. The flipped learning is a pedagogical approach. So it's not a flavor of the month. It's not a new trendy thing. It's not something that is going to change. It's actually a pedagogical approach that I adopt as an educator, in which direct instruction, what I'm doing right here, moves from the group learning space, what I'm doing right here is in the group learning space, to the individual learning space, right, to the students. However, it doesn't say here videos, right? It says direct instruction. We can give direct instruction in different ways. Yes, videos might be a good way to do it, but it's not the only one, right? But what is the point of that? What is the point of moving, the spaces? Well, to transform the group space into a dynamic, interactive learning environment where the educator guides the students. Remember how many years have we talked about the teacher as a facilitator? Well, here's your facilitator. As they apply concepts and engage creatively in the subject matter. So repeating stuff, that's not creative, right? Only eliciting, that's not creative. We think about creative applications of whatever you do and do that into the flipped environment. Second definition is by the Flipped Learning Global Initiative. Yeah, so I'm going to make this smaller. I don't know if that is going to affect anything. Oh, sorry. So, okay, the Flipped Learning Global Initiative in 2018, that means 4 years later, came up with their own definition. The Flipped Learning Global Initiative is that company or that sector organized by John Bergman, one of the pioneers of the term flipped learning. And he says, or his cooperative of people say that flipped learning is a framework that enables educators to reach every student. How beautiful is that? To reach every student. The flipped approach inverts the traditional classroom model by introducing course concepts before class. Yeah, so we still have the direct instruction moved outside, allowing educators to use class time to guide, once again, the word guide, students through active, practical, innovative applications of the course principles. So once again, we have activity, practicity, we have innovation, everything like kind of crazy happening in the classroom. And thanks to Isabel Tejada, who is also watching this webinar, watching her webinar on gamification inspired me to come up with my own definition of flipped learning, because she said, these are my interpretations of gamification. So I thought, well, I can have my own interpretation of flipped learning too. Thank you very much, Isabel. So here is mine. Flipped learning is a compassionate teaching methodology. Students are placed at the center of the learning process, and teachers are architects of authentic, meaningful, and intentional learning experiences for both spaces of learning in and out of the classroom. So I highlight 3 different things here. First of all, compassionate. Do not understand compassionate in the meaning that we give it in Spanish, like compassion, like pity. It's not that. It's the meaning that we find in the literature from Buddhism, the Dalai Lama, Marshall Rosenberg, in his nonviolent communication. Compassion is love. So flipped learning is a loving teaching methodology. It's love for learning, love for teaching, love for materials, love for content, love for my students, and love and understanding that they are people, that they have difficulties, that they have family issues, that they do not understand topics, that they don't understand technology, and that I don't understand technology sometimes. I have to be self-compassionate too. Flipped learning is a methodology that allows me to have that compassion into the classroom. Where students are placed at the center of the learning process, yes, I'm always putting students on the center. They are the ones who are in charge. They are the ones who are getting their hands dirty because they're the ones who are learning, right? The one who does the talking is the one who does the learning. I read somewhere. And so if we want our students to do the learning, that's what we have to do. Let them do the talking. So we have also the third part, which is teachers are architects. Architects of authentic, meaningful, and intentional learning experiences. This has a little bit of a personal meaning because my husband is a civil engineer, and he says that architects dream up things that engineers make happen, so like architects are very creative and they imagine the structures. Think about those buildings in Sydney, Australia. So, but then it's the engineer who has to weld the metal and make it all happen, right? So I want us to think like architects, not like engineers. I want us to think like the people who are creative and want to think that everything is possible, not like the engineer who's always measuring and giving the you know what, this material won't do that, this won't fit, this won't do. Because if we plan our classes thinking on what won't happen only, we're missing out on a lot of opportunities, right? Okay, John Bergman, one of the pioneers of the term, says that flipped learning is a meta strategy that allows all other strategies to happen. How so? If I remove my time talking in the classroom, I empty up all that space for my students to do what really matters. So that's how this becomes the meta strategy that allows everything to happen. So the next myth, before I move on to the next myth, I'm going to go to the chat because it's going crazy. So, okay, it's cute, says my friend Early. Designers of learning experiences, yes, understand students' concerns. Okay, great. Keep the reflection going. It's important for us to discuss these issues there. Do it on the chat. That's perfect. Katie, if you feel like there's something that needs to be said, just let me know, okay? All right, so myth number 2. Let's see. Flipped learning is overrated. It is the same as blended learning. No, it's not. It is not the same as blended learning because of many reasons. First reason, historically, I guess, it's just, a time reason. Second, it involves a lot more. Flipped learning is not just the flavor of the month. It's something that you adopt as a mindset. You become a flipping teacher and you believe in it. If you don't believe in it, don't become one, because that's going to take a toll on you and your emotional health, right? You have to believe to be able to create a flexible environment. You have to be flexible here to be able to make flexible decisions in your classroom. It also promotes a learning culture. What is a learning culture? It's a culture where there's no bullying, because mistakes are allowed. Mistakes are part of the process because you are practicing a growth mindset. Mistakes are the process. So there's no bullying, there's no mocking. Of course, teenagers, kids, there are personalities and all that. But in the learning culture, students are the ones setting their own rules. Students are the ones empowered, as Katia mentioned in the chat. They're empowered in their learning, so the culture is different. Third, there is intentional content. I do not give content to cover. Covering is not an option. So if your institution is telling you to cover 25 units in 1 month, then it's very difficult for you to make the leap to flipping. But you can justify, why you don't need to have 25 units. You need to have 12 that you actually do well and that your students actually manage. Then you have to become a professional educator. What is a professional educator? Is someone who constantly trains him or herself, like yourselves. You're looking for training here on these webinars. A professional educator is someone who talks, someone who shares with colleagues, who shares mistakes and problems, who maybe has a blog and writes, who maybe does research. That's a professional educator. So I'm sure all of you guys are over here. Okay, I have some more things on the chat going on. Yeah, the learning community and accepted education cannot be rigid. That's absolutely right, Ari. And also, Carlos says that it is connected to learning outcomes rather than content. Absolutely. If I want my students to achieve something, I just stick to the content that stick to the outcome, and then the content will just fall into place. Right. So we're going to do a little exercise. Okay. I need to get out of my screen here. Okay, wait a second. I think I didn't do it right. May have. Okay, there we go. So I'm going to share here on the chat a document, okay? This document, wait a second. Okay, so that's not it, Juli. That's not the one. That's not the one. I'm going to share a document here, and the document is the indicators of flipped learning as offered by the Flipped Learning Network. Okay, there is a definition in English, and there is a list, a checklist of indicators for you to self-assess. Okay, I want you to go to that link, which is flippedlearning.org. Yeah, Flipped Learning Network link, and take a look, take a reflective look at yourself, at your practice. Yeah, how much do you already flip? There are 11 indicators, and I'm pretty positive a lot of you do at least half of them, because there are some practices that are just good teaching. In flipped learning, there are some things that are just good teaching. Paula, wait a second, I have something for you there. Okay, so while you do that exercise, I guess this reflective exercise is going to take you more than just 2 minutes. So I'm going to leave you there with that handout for you to do that later. Okay, so please open up the handout and have it for you. Another thing is the standards. Yeah, so not only we have the 4 pillars of flipped learning as proposed by the Flipped Learning Network, but we also have the elements. We have 87 elements for flipping proposed by the Flipped Learning Global Initiative. So when we say that it's the same as blended learning and that it's overrated, I don't think so. There are little practices, there are little things that we have to pay attention to in our classes to make sure we're actually doing the flips. So what I'm going to do here is, once again, stop sharing that screen, and I'm going to put another link on the chat, which is the list of elements. Okay, so what I want you to do is, whenever you have the time, whenever you want after the webinar, because I have only 1 hour to cram 7 years of learning. So when you finish the webinar, then you take a look and you click on those elements, right? When you click on the elements, you're going to see, oh yeah, I do this like this, I do this like that, or oh, I could pay attention to this because I'm not doing it quite well right now, right? So it's something, this is once again part of becoming a professional educator. So it's to reflect on your practice and to not think that you got it all right, because that's something that we will never get right. Like being teachers, being parents, we'll never do it completely right. We will never be perfect because perfection doesn't exist, right? So what we need to do is have this growth mindset, this idea of continuous reflection and growth, and see, the practices that are out there are going to help us see how to do it better. Okay, so once again, how much do I already flip? You can be on the checklist, you can be on the elements, and take a look at your practice and see how it goes. I will send this to as a copy, the 2 links, so that they can put them in the comments in the chat box in YouTube. Okay, Great. So I want to move on to the third myth. This is Paula's question. I can flip my class because my students are young. This is a myth, yeah? And it's a good try, yeah, because people get scared about the young ones. But I have a 7-year-old and a 4-year-old, and I can assure you that classes can be flipped with them. How? Why? Well, flipped learning works with everyone because it is about active learning, and every learner loves activity. So if you conceive of flipped learning as only watching videos and sending videos home, of course, it's not going to work for a 4-year-old to have them glued to a screen for 5 hours a day, right? That's not going to work. But if you conceive of flipped learning as this compassionate methodology where students are at the center and teachers are architects of these amazing experiences for learning, of course, you can flip it with young ones, with older ones. Yeah, active learning is for everyone. So flipped learning is for everyone. Yeah, don't worry about it. So the thing is, the important thing about flipped learning is decision making. That is the key component. We have to make decisions at every step of the way. So are there any other myths that you think should be debunked in this very short session? Okay, great, Paula. I'm glad I answered your question. So yeah, trial and error, absolutely. Okay, so no more myths. You can leave them there and we'll see them maybe in another video, maybe some other time, I guess, because nobody's writing right now. Yeah. Yeah, okay. Okay, great. So in this moment, Juli says that technology is a must. And so, yeah, actually, the thing is that right now we are having more access to technology. However, there are some teachers in rural areas who are doing amazing flipped learning without technology. They just have a WhatsApp conversation, and that is their contact with the students. But what they're sending home is so cared for, so catered for the students that they are actually flipping. Okay, so flipped learning is just assigning homework. Yes, Carlo, that's not it. It's a myth, you know, it's like the first myth. It's just sending videos home. No, it is about the whole experience. Okay, great. So I'm going to, oh, there is one more. Students will be alone in their process. Oh yeah, that Nadia says students will be alone in their process. Yes, that's true. That's a myth. It's a myth. The teacher is with the students at every step of the way. It's just not giving direct instruction. It's closer to the students when giving feedback. It's closer to the students when getting to know them, because now he has time, because he doesn't have to be at the front of the classroom explaining the concepts. What he can be doing is sitting down with each one and every student to know exactly where the problems are, the difficulties, strengths, weaknesses. It's wonderful, actually. Yeah. Okay, so Suli, thank you so much for that very generous comment there. The idea today is precisely that. Let's see how you can flip your remote teaching class, right? There's still half an hour and we haven't got to the nitty-gritty of the session. So we have no choice about remote teaching, but we can make it unforgettable, right? What our students are going to remember at this moment, probably it's not too much about the content that we did, but how we crafted the experience for them, right? How we made them learn about themselves, their families, their weaknesses, their strengths, how to help them be better learners, right? So let's take a look at how we can do that. Okay, Juli, now you're up. There is a link that we'll be sharing on the chat. I prepared a document for you. I prepared a handout for you to take home and keep it with you with some links, with some things, because I know that this is going to be too fast and that probably you're going to need some more time to digest. So there are some additional videos, there are some links to some things there. And so I want you to keep that document. That's why you can just click on the link and make a copy and it'll be in your Google Drive, okay? So please do not go without taking that document. So the first thing you're gonna do, we're gonna think first at the unit level, and then we're gonna go down to the lesson level, okay? So let's think of a unit. The first thing you do is you choose the skill you want to flip. We're thinking about language classes. So in my handout, you have the skills and the system. So we have Listening, reading, writing, speaking, pronunciation, vocabulary, and grammar. Do we flip everything at the same time? No, we don't, because we don't want to go crazy and we don't want to make our students crazy. And besides, at every level, there are levels of difficulty, and there are some things that we actually want to do with them, guiding them, but there are some things that we can, free up space in our classroom with. So for example, in my case, I have flipped grammar and writing in my classes. I have changed the way that I teach those two, and it's been a game changer. It's been a game changer. Grammar, taking it out, it's been awesome. I did it with hyperdocs. That was what Adriana was saying last week in her talk. And there is a little bit about hyperdocs in there in the handout that I prepared for you. Okay. So you choose the skill. What do you want to flip? Listening strategies, vocabulary, grammar. Yeah, I don't want to expect you to do that thinking right now, but that's one of the decisions that you have to make when you flip. The second decision that you will have to make is to think about the spaces. Yeah, flip learning has two spaces. The individual learning space, where students are working autonomously, independently with their material, the material that you have prepared, curated, or created for them. Yeah. So you can use hyperdocs, you can use pre-recorded videos made by you with a PowerPoint or Screencast-O-Matic, or any other tool actually. Textbook pages. Do you have a textbook? Do you have to use a textbook in your institution? Perfect. Use a textbook pages as your flipped material. Annotated or enhanced readings on paper or PDF. Right now we have an offer of tools. Don't worry, tools are coming. Podcasts, yeah, you may want to give students some additional listening practice, and that can come in the form of podcasts. Slideshows, teaching texts, like you prepare kind of a tutorial of a material with pictures, with different instructions. You can combine in audio, video, all Aldemar's ideas on multimodal texts. You can combine all that and bring them to your classroom, to your individual learning space of your students, tutorials, you name it. Yeah. Then we have the group learning space. In this moment with the pandemic, the group learning spaces are Zooms, our Teams, our Meets, like all these platforms that we're using for synchronous communication. So here is where we do student-centeredness, authentic interaction, language classes. We love this. Speaking activities, in-class flip. Yeah, here's where you can do this. We'll talk about it later. Socratic seminars, peer instruction, when you have your students teach each other. Yeah, Socratic seminars is another strategy that will be an entirely different webinar. Feedback. This is the moment when you can sit down with your students to give them feedback. Inquiry-based learning, cooperative learning strategies. I don't know if you know Kagan structures, they're awesome. Differentiated instruction. This is where you do your choice boards, your learning menus, where you prepare different activities for different students in the form of a chart, and then they choose what they want to do. Gamification. Yeah, here's where you apply all of those wonderful ideas that Isabel shared with us. Mastery learning. Yeah, if you want, I tried that one. Oh my God, that was one of the biggest boomers in my career. I don't know, it was really hard. Project-based learning. I know some of you are all about project-based learning because you work at schools, and there it's really practical and great to do. Makerspaces, everything JC told us in a webinar like three weeks ago. Okay, and anything you can think of, basically. Yeah, whatever you want to do, now you have time for. So that's the second thing. The third thing you do is you think about and design your tasks. Yeah, you already thought of the spaces. Okay, what space do I have? What things can I do in these different spaces that I have because of my limitations, because of my students, because of the level of proficiency, because of the level of technological savviness, whatever. And you have made your decisions there in the spaces. I can do this, I cannot do this. Now you think about the actual design and design your tasks. For this, my friends, I have something that I always do, and it's actually very helpful for me, and it is Bloom's taxonomy. I just consider Bloom's taxonomy. This image that you see right here, it's a version of Bloom's taxonomy flipped, right? So here we have that in the traditional classroom, the student independently studies by creating, evaluating, and analyzing. So let's think about that essay, that composition about your last vacation. So the student does it on their own, at home, alone, with all the mistakes in the world, and he doesn't have our support, right? And in the class, teachers transmit content. So we explain the simple past, or we explain the passive voice, and then we have students practice it at home with some exercises or some compositions, right? Let's think about that basic traditional class. Then in the flipped class, the student independent study is about the lower thinking skills, right? So remembering and understanding, a little bit of applying happens in the individual learning space. So if I prepare a hyperdoc, it's going to be for this, for students to remember and understand a concept. If I prepare a tutorial, a video, it's going to be for that, right? And then teachers and students engage with the content by analyzing, evaluating, and creating. So that composition would be written in the classroom with me next to them to support them, to give them hints, to help them with the words, to help them with the vocabulary, to help them brainstorm, to help them correct. We will have peer exercises. We will have a lot of interaction. We will be speaking all the time. See how that changes? Okay. So if you Google Bloom's taxonomy verbs, you're going to find a myriad of resources where you can find the different kinds of activities that you do. So this is what I use it for. So I take my format and I think of the verbs that I'm going to have my students do. So define, identify, describe in the individual learning space and those independently created activities. And then the higher, from 3 to 6, then we go to the group learning space. So students will be designing, modifying, criticizing, reframing, judging, defending, appraising, right? In front of me, next to me, with my support and with their partner support. That sounds a lot like constructivism to me. Okay, and here, if you Google digital, like Bloom's digital taxonomy, you go crazy about all the images or all the articles you will have about this. However, in your handout, I have placed one link with a lot of these verbs, okay? They're gonna help you. Okay, so I'm gonna take a look at the chat right now because it's bombarding. Okay, development of huts, yes. Yes, yes. Marzano's taxonomy, wonderful, sure. Okay, do you happen to know any studies that are based on that taxonomy? You mean Marzano's? Yes, there are many studies based on Marzano's. And actually, Adriana shared Project Zero last week. In her webinar, she talked about the thinking routines that can also be integrated. You can integrate anything. Remember that flipped learning is the meta strategy that allows all other strategies to happen. So when you flip your class, you can insert all those things as you feel they fit in the different parts of the process. Okay, so we also have active learning, right? So when thinking about what you're gonna do in your class, think about active learning strategies. There are gazillions of books about active learning activities or strategies. So reflect in writing, solve it, relate it, feel it, generate questions, teach it. And also Project Zero, they have a lot of activities for in class, like for the in-class session. So think about how this is forming, a flow, right? We have a flow in the class. Okay. Yes, Katya, you're absolutely right. Flipped learning takes backward design into account. We start with the goal and we design from then on until we define what we have to do with our students. Okay. And something that I've been meaning to get my hands on, but I haven't been able to, but I know some of you have already explored deeply, is Universal Design for Learning, UDL. So here, I want to bring the words of Aaron Sams. He says, design for the French and involve everybody. If we design our class for the students that are average, the students in the middle, we're leaving out the high achievers and the low achievers. We're definitely missing out on a lot of things. Also, we're missing out on the students who don't have technology, who don't have resources, who probably have a learning disability. So if we design for the French, for that student with that disability, for that student with no technology, for that student with a difficult problem at home, if we design for them, we include everybody. Right? So I strongly suggest you to check UDL. It's kind of where flipped learning is going now. Okay. So why universal design for learning? Well, because we have many different kinds of students, as I just mentioned, right? Different backgrounds, different language abilities, different attention spans and interests, different educational backgrounds, different needs. So for all of you on the public sector, you have all this in your classrooms, you have many difficulties. So if you start reading and implementing UDL, you're gonna see a great benefit, and it all fits with flipped learning. Okay. So you have done that. That's the core part of it. Let's say the whole designing of the tasks. Then you think of the tech tools. You see how I didn't do this first? It is not first the technology and then the pedagogy. No. As my friend Astrid Wilches said, it's you have to let pedagogy be the driver of your car and technology is in the passenger seat, right? So we're gonna think of the tech tools to use. As Adriana said, as there are, what is it? For lights that are colors, something like that. So there are tools for everyone. There are many, many, many tools out there, and I cannot put them all on a slide. I just brought here some of my favorites for my different spaces. So for example, in the individual learning space, I love to use HyperDocs. I am a big fan. And actually in your handout, I put 2 videos where I explain how to do a HyperDoc. So if you want to take a look and, you know, just explore a bit, there are the 2 videos. Genially, I'm discovering that's a great website. It has a lot of potential. It has some things that are paid, but the free version lets you do some stuff. Edpuzzle, where you can give interactivity to your videos. You can add questions, add your own voice. You know, you can make students feel like they're with you when they're watching a video. Deck Toys, which allows you to create like gamified paths or routes for students to get through content. Actively Learn, which is basically Edpuzzle, the same as Edpuzzle. You can add interactivity to videos and texts. This one has supports PDFs. Edpuzzle doesn't. Powtoon to make cool presentations. Like if you guys work with kids, Powtoon has really beautiful little tiny presentations with muñequitos and things that really can help the kid absorb information. I'm telling you because my daughter's teacher uses Powtoon and my kid loves it. Screencast-O-Matic is my go-to tool for screen recording. I love Screencast-O-Matic. It's easy, it's cheap. I actually got the paid version and it was super cheap and it gives me a lot of features. And Flipgrid, which is to record videos also. I can use this one in and out, right? So the group learning space, once again, there are many, many, many. I'm just sharing the ones that I like to use, right? So Google Jamboard, it's some very simple flashcards, you know, you can make like with post-its and little things. It's very easy, very simple, and students love it. Marta Ramirez, my friend, introduced me to it, and it's adorable. And I've seen the work of Diana Salazar, another teacher who's doing great things, beautiful games with this. Quizzes is one of my favorite tools. It's very easy. I don't like Kahoot because of the speed. It makes me nervous. So I think of my students, maybe they makes them nervous too, whatever. So Quizzes really does the trick for me. And it has 5 types of questions. So it allows me for a lot. Genially, once again, allows me to do board games, which I think is awesome. Students love these digital board games. Mentimeter allows me to collect answers from my students. HyperDocs, once again, I can have them in the individual and the group learning space. All the Google Suite is wonderful, and I use it also to make choice boards. I love choice boards. And Padlet, you know, the typical go-to. But of course, in the handout, I have left a list of 54 tools that you can use to flip your class. Okay, I hope it's enough for some of you who are just beginning. Okay. So we're seeing some action in the chat. People are commenting. This is a wonderful image that a friend just, you know, send me over. 40 tools to apply the flipped class methodology. So you have all the possibility of tools. You can find that in just Google, you know, just Google the tools for flipped classroom and you'll find a bunch. As I said to you in the handout, there are 54. You know, there's a link. It says for a list here, and then you go to that link and you find a list of 54. Okay, so you think about assessment. Once you have done that, you think about the assessment that you're going to do in your flipped class, right? In your unit. What are you going to have? Is it going to be, what is the project going to be? What is the result? Actually, you can do that in the design part if we're thinking about backward design. Okay, is it going to be summative or formative assessment? Are we going to have students just report on something, or are we going to be given constant and frequent feedback? This is one of the benefits that I have found in flipping my class, that I can give more accurate and constant feedback to my students, even though, and I confess, I have a problem, and my boss is here and he knows, and is that I always hand in my grades late. I have a terrible procrastination problem with the grades. However, as my students have received constant feedback on their papers, on their tasks, on their assignments throughout the term, they never complain. Because it's not like that final grade is the only information they're going to have about their performance. They have heard about their performance for a long time during the term. That one is just the culmination or the number for that, you know? So if you choose formative assessment, it's going to help you a lot. And also flipping allows you for formative assessment. Okay, so 6. Now, okay, we thought about the unit, right? We thought about the big picture. Let's say what skill, let's see the course, I don't know, like something bigger. Now we're gonna go to the lesson part. So in your handout, you also have a mini lesson plan, you know, like a lesson plan format if you want to take a look at it. So, okay, I like to think of a class sequence that is, I mean, it's not perfect, but it works for me, right? So it's an entry ticket. That entry ticket, it's something that I use to check what students did, you know, like the preparation. They are supposed to prepare something at home, right? Be it a video, be it a reading, a tutorial, a hyperdoc, whatever it is. So I prepare a little exercise to check that. Do you have that? You know, do you bring it with you? Did you work on it? And it's kind of a question that is hidden right there. You remember in Isabel's gamification webinar, she talked about the little keys, and she hit some keys that we were supposed to pay attention to throughout the presentation. It's something like that, like you hide something and you have them use it or tell you that when you come into the classroom, into the digital classroom. Then we go into the individual independent learning space. Let's say the work that they did there, we clarify questions. Here's where I use my quizzes, for example. We clarify with questions, we discuss problems, we go over that, not repeating what they're supposed to read, but checking that they actually did it, you know? So I usually use a quizzes, we have a discussion that lasts some time there. We clarify some doubts, you know, we answer questions, etc. Then we do an emotional, like a social emotional check-in. You know, how are you doing? How are you doing now? You can do that with emojis. You can do that with GIFs, with stickers, whatever, so that you know how your students are doing. Then we go on to the group learning space activities. So we think about gamification, we can think about the student-centered activities, the active learning activities. Here is where we do, you know, collaboration. Nowadays, it's super important. Katie in her webinar showed us how to do collaboration online. So it's important to think about all these activities that I'm going to do in one lesson, right? Then how am I going to assess that? What are the points that I'm going to give? What is the feedback that I'm going to give? Is it going to be self-assessment, peer assessment, teacher assessment? Is it going to be graded? Is it going to be a quiz? You know, you think about it. And then we finish with an exit ticket, right? So what did you get? What are your takeaways from this class? Show me on this exercise. You can write, you can ask a question, you can write a sentence, you can post on Flipgrid, you can post on Padlet. I mean, it is up to you, but here is where the decision making happens. You know, you take this, you make decisions as to how to do each one of these things. Okay. Once you flip, you'll never go back to the front of the class. It's hard. It's hard. Okay, so there are some challenges, of course. This is not all roses and rainbows and unicorns, even though I just see rainbows and unicorns. My coworkers know that. So there are some challenges, yes. Flipping is time consuming. Yes, it is. I'm not going to tell you lies. I'm not going to say, no, it's not. No, yes, it is. But there is a but. It is time consuming at the beginning. You know, it is time consuming when you're learning to do it, like anything else. Do you remember when you first graduated from university and you had your first job? How long did it take you to lesson plan? Like 5 hours, you know? It's the same as with anything we do for the first time. Yeah, the important thing is not to give up and to think that, oh no, this is not for me because my students are too young, or because my students are too old, or because my students have technology, or because my students don't have technology. It's just, power through the difficulties. Student and parent buy-in takes some time. Yes, I give you that. That is a challenge that you face. Some students are going to be like, you know what? I think you're not teaching, like if you're working in a private institute where students are very accustomed to being told what to do and being taught. I remember that back in the day when I worked in a private language institute, my boss received a complaint because I wasn't doing my job. I was giving too much work to the students, because they still have this mindset when they are the ones receiving and the teacher is the one pouring on their heads. So it takes some time, but stick to it, okay? Don't let that get to you. Students resist to the new form of teaching. Of course, in this form of teaching, students are supposed to be the center of the learning process. That meaning they have to do the work, right? If they have been so used to playing school, just like, oh, I'm just gonna answer what the teacher wants me to answer. I'll just do the homework to pass. I'll just do this because I have to, but I don't even care how I'm doing it. Of course, they're going to present resistance to you. But the important thing here is to stick to your guns and to think, do I want my students to become better learners? Do I want my students to use English for real? Do I want my students to succeed in life? Okay, so I'll stick to this and I'll just power through the resistance, right? What are the benefits? There are so many benefits. Using class time for what really matters. Yeah, PERMA. This is positive psychology. What really matters is creating positive emotions in students, is creating engagement in your class, is making students feel comfortable and happy and like they want to be there. Positive relationships is strengthening your relationships with your students and knowing them as people, not as numbers, not as código 35, It's knowing that they have families, problems, issues, and that you can help by bringing this happiness into your class through a good methodology that takes them into consideration. Meaning, it's having meaning. Why did you become a teacher? It wasn't for the money, because this is not a profession that we get for the money, right? You got here, you became a teacher because it was a call, because it was something in your heart that told you that you could make a difference. So here's the moment to go for that meaning and make a difference. Accomplishment. It is wonderful. I'm tired of seeing all these Americans on YouTube saying like, you haven't learned English in 3 months. It's because all your teachers have taught you wrong. And I'm like, oh my goodness, really? And you come here as an American and you promote yourself on YouTube, and then you get all the people, even after we have dedicated our lives to teaching. You know what I mean? So this is the moment when you can really focus on what matters. Sorry, that was too fast. So what is the best use of you in your English class? I want you to ask yourself that question. What is the best use of you in your English class? It's to give them something that it's on YouTube. It's to give them something that they can find in a platform. It's to give them something that they can find on internet. It's to recite a list of verbs. It's to recite a list of adverbs. Is that the best use of you? Well, take advantage of remote teaching and flip to find out. Flip your class and find out now that you have the opportunity, right? Thank you so much. We have 10 minutes for questions.
Is there someone that wants to share any question with Carolina, with us?
Yeah, has a
Thank you.
question.
Okay,
Yes, please.
there we go.
Thank you.
Are you listening to me? Yes?
Yes.
Okay, hello, I'm Sandra, and it's very interesting your video conference. I'm going to apply to my student when I'm going to start with my classes. The
Awesome,
question is,
Sandra.
according that you suggest to us, as a teachers, it about the web pages, applications, apps. It's very good to know if we need to get a very good a PC.
Yeah,
You-
well, actually, in this moment, Sandra, when we are all remote, a good computer is good, you know. You should see my computer. It's pitiful. My computer is horrible, but it runs internet. That's what we need. You know, that's what we need, that it actually runs the internet. So don't worry
Yes.
if your computer is not the best or the latest technology. You just need the internet connection. Okay, don't worry about that.
You know why the question? Because I'm using some of the apps that you suggest, and
Oh,
that they're when I explain something to the students through the Zoom video conference, it tried
mhm,
to return too slow. That is what are the
mhm.
questions.
Yes,
And the
that's
other, yes, you answer, please.
okay. No, that's very true, and it's very common. So that's where the flipping comes, Sandra. You can record a little tutorial on how to use the tool, and you send it to the students before the class so that they can see it and they can practice before you start the class. So when you do the Zoom, you don't have to, diminish the broadband or the
Okay.
internet capacity with the explanation. You know what I mean?
Yes, it is. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay, you're very welcome. Thank you for your question. Okay.
I
Well,
think Luisa
Mhm.
had raised her hand.
Oh, yes,
So
wonderful. Luisita, go ahead. Luisa Ramirez, right?
yes, she was.
Yes, I think I saw that little hand too. Go ahead, Luisa.
I don't know what happened with her.
No, I think she's gone, but I see Juan
Okay.
Carlos.
Juan Carlos
Go.
Gordillo,
Yes.
please. Juan Carlos, are you there? They fainted. It was
Yeah.
so good. It was so good that they fainted.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I'm really humbled to see so many former students of mine here. This is beautiful. Yes, Katia, go ahead. Ask the question. And Lady Villamizar too. So Katia, you go first.
Yeah, it's nice to see you again,
Nice
Karen.
to see you too.
My question is related to flipping the classroom and making the environment much more flexible. How do you
Okay.
handle flexibility when there are deadlines to meet, school
Mhm.
deadlines to meet, and at the same time, maybe students who refuse to speak because maybe they are still in their silent period? How do you manage those three, let's say, requirements and difficulties?
Okay, well, so something important is there are some limitations that we have, and there are schools all around the world using this methodology with their own limitations, right? So one of them that you mentioned is the students who refuse to speak because they are in the silent period. Um, that can be easily solved with tools like Flipgrid, for example. That's something that I have started to use. I started to use because of that reason, precisely because my students had a hard time adapting to my methodology at the beginning, and so they didn't want to speak so much. So Flipgrid was the life changer there, because I could have them, remember is what we did back in the day with, oh my God, what was the name of that? Voxopop and VoiceThread. There are those tools that allow you to record, and students can practice and record many, many times. That gives them this security that they're not going to be put on the spot in the classroom. And little by little, it builds their confidence. So I would strongly suggest working on something like that for the individual learning space to make sure that they build that confidence. In regards to the institution and the deadlines and all the dates and constraints that you have in the school, well, you have to play by ear, let's say. At the beginning, it's going to be tough. It's going to be a lot of resistance from the administration, from the institution. But then when they see the results and when they see that actually students are getting more engaged in the class, they're not missing classes, that they're participating, and not only in your class, but in others, that their confidence is being built, of course, they're going to be a little bit more flexible with you in letting you be more autonomous in the decisions that you make. But that is a process that takes time. Because of course nobody's going to let you do whatever you want tomorrow. You have to, of course, kind of build on that. And the third one is the flexibility. How do you build the flexibility? I know that when we think of a flipped classroom, or when we think of flexibility, we imagine like a Google Office, with a slide and puffs and a swing, and that would be fantastic. but we don't. It's not that, you know. We have chairs like any other university, like with that little table, you know. We have the crazy amount of tables in the classroom, so we have little room to move. But that flexibility is not in furniture. That flexibility is not in the environment, in the physical environment only. That flexibility is in the minds of the teachers and the students. That is the hard part to build, you know, the flexibility of making mistakes. How many students come to us with a fixed mindset because they have been asked for grades all of their lives and they just care about the grade, you know? And so building that growth mindset, helping that student become more flexible with him or herself in terms of learning, that is where the flexible environment goes. And that starts with a teacher who has a flexible environment herself, you know, somebody who believes it's okay to make mistakes. And if a class doesn't go exactly as planned, it's not terrible. It's a learning opportunity. I think building on that is more important than building the flexible environment in the class, because students are super flexible, you know, sit down on the floor and make a poster and they'll do it. Yeah, it doesn't matter. We don't need a Google Classroom, like the Google Classroom, a Google Office. Okay, I hope I answered your 3 points. Yeah.
Yes, you did. Thank you,
Okay.
Karen.
Thank you,
Okay.
Katia. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. We have one question from Juan Jose Duran. And he
Okay.
says, could you please tell some names of a study that have conducted, implemented the flipped learning methodology in primary schools?
Okay, can I name the studies? No, I cannot name the studies because most, I don't remember the names. I'm sorry, my memory is good, but not for that kind of super specific question. But what I can assure you, I'm sorry, is that if you go to Google Scholar and you write the words flipped learning plus young learners, you're going to find zillions of studies because it's being done. It's being done in many countries, in Colombia even. Sorry. There are some theses, some master's theses that I have directed myself that have pointed to young children. Now that you make me think of the thesis, I can recommend two. Ramirez, Andrea, and Munevar. Sorry, Liz. They did a thesis on in-class flip, and you can find that in the repository at Universidad de La Sabana. I'm writing that on the chat just in case somebody else wants to take a note of that. They did an in-class flip intervention with 3rd grade students. And another one is Hernandez, Andrea, and Torres, Catalina. In the same repository, you can find it. They did a flipped writing class for 3rd graders as well. Yeah, if you want young learners, just run the Google search or go for these 2 studies and you can see how they've been done. Now they're all coming to me. Jerry Overmeyer. Okay, that's another one. Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you, Carolina. We have one last question because we are
Okay.
just like finishing from Zuli Diaz.
Mhm.
She asked, how many skills can we flip in just one class about any specific topic?
Okay. Well, I would say that depends, Juli. That depends on your students, on how much you have flipped already. Because with my students, I can pretty much flip anything if I want to at this point, because they have been trained, you know, they know how to do it. They know how to watch the videos. They know about the workload. It's fine. They're fine with it. But in a group of students that have never had a flipped class, you don't want to flip too much. You want to go for the parts that you really think you're going to be able to construct the whole experience for. Yeah. Because if what you can do is just send stuff home, but you cannot do anything in the classroom, then it's not going to be okay, right? You need to build the entire experience. What you can do is make a combination, right? Like you can flip, for example, the listening strategies, you can send them home, the listening strategies and the listening exercises. Like, for example, the audio, I do that, like send the audio home and then have students listen to it in the class for a task. yeah, but you can play with that. But one thing that what I just said made me think of something that is very important in flipped learning, and it's to relinquish control. You have to let go. For some teachers, that's really hard. That's a really hard part of it, that you have to let go, and you have to, for example, just give them your audio to listen at home. Why not? You know, it's like we're always testing, checking that they actually know how to do it. So we have to relinquish control a little bit. So, and be flexible. That's what the flexibility that Katya was asking about is all about.
All right. Well, thank you, Carolina, for this
Okay.
amazing webinar. It was
thank you.
crazy, the chat, and
Yes.
there was a lot of participation. Thank you for all the participants today. It was really, really nice to have you here. And of course, to invite you to our next webinars. Thank you, Carolina, again, and thank you all for being here, all right? Don't
Thank
miss the
you.
next webinars. They are going to be
Okay.
really, really nice. So, well, let's see you next week.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
very
you for
much. Thank you,
the invitation.
Carolina.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye,
See you soon.
everyone.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye. See you. Take care. Yeah.